Oh, hi.
Hi, is this Roya?
Yes, hi. Sorry. I'm in a very weird spot right now. I can't video call. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really nice to talk to you. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Aghighi.
Aghighi.
Yeah, well, the right pronunciation of it is actually a little challenging, so I settled with Aghighi. That's fine.
I won't try to say it, but what is the full name?
That's Aghighi. It's like a letter that no one can apparently pronounce.
Okay. I saw that you're Canadian Iranian. Is that that name must come from which particular culture?
Oh, that's Iranian, actually.
Is there a subsect?
No, not really.
Okay.
So,
No, I'm so glad for you to join me on this. I thought when I heard about what you were engaged in here, I thought it was really revolutionary, something I'd never heard of.
oh,
And
thank you.
wanted to know more about it. So, can you tell me what problem are you trying to solve?
Oh, many actually. So this particular project is a long passion of mine. So I've been like a fashion obsessed personally. I've been trying to just do something about it because I'm a designer, and I believe that as designers we have a huge power and role and responsibility in doing something about things that we create in the world.
Mhm.
And seeing all these crazy numbers of textile waste into the landfill, the pollution, and how fast fashion is shifting the culture of textile consumption, and all of that sort of forced me to think about um, something different. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm not trying to, well, I always say this and I always open with this, that I'm not trying to solve anything. I don't want this to be considered as a solution, but as a process of conversation and thought provocative piece, maybe more so than a solution, because design and designers, as they're thought and as they operate in the world, they tend to just tackle a particular single linear solution, offer a fastest possible, they tackle a problem and offer the fastest solution to that, to just cover up something which not necessarily solve it in the long term. That could be just what do you call it, a band-aid solution.
You would say that if you were solving a problem, the problem would be that people don't give enough consideration as to the impact of their wardrobe.
Impact of their behaviors in general. So what I was trying to do, I was trying to shift our fundamental beliefs and values and core attitude towards fashion, mainly because right now fast fashion made it so cheap and accessible to everyone to just be able to consume and not even think about the consequences of their consumption. And as well as, there are a lot of research out there indicating that the clothes are not even being worn more than 20% of their actual potential. So what does it really say to us? So you just wear a t-shirt for 10 times and you throw it away? Like, what is really going on with all that? And there are other way of addressing this issue. There are a lot of other practices, upcycling, recycling. But to me, I really, as much as I appreciate those and I think they have great value, but I don't think a change actually can appear without changing the values and the core foundation of thought process and decision making process. So I was trying to create something that triggers human connection with living things. So as you know, whatever is living around us, we tend to take a better care of it or care more for it. So I was trying to use that in an aspect of clothing, and I started thinking about, okay, what if our actual garments that we wear every single day were alive, and how would that change how we treat them or what we do with them?
That's a really unique concept. It's true. I mean, if people we take care of our children, right? And if you have a pet and you don't have children, you treat your pet like a child. And if you have a plant, you treat your plant like a pet. And if you have, we just upgrade and we appreciate these things that we can perceive of as alive.
Exactly. As soon as we know that something has an agency of its own, and it's living, we tend to think about it differently versus just an object. And clothing has become so like the value has completely gone. Like if you go back to history, you'll see that a textile used to be precious. It used to be an indication of wealth, class, amazing cultures, and so on. Where is all that right now? What's going on to it? I mean,
True. So what have you achieved? I mean, as you were talking about that as a fashion designer, this project in particular blends elements of fashion, the keen sense of fashion, along with a biological understanding, as well as materials engineering, are all elements to this.
yes, basically, I call myself a multidisciplinary designer, a person in between various different fields of practices. In design, it's starting to get a little more bold these days. In past decade, there are a lot of practices basically similar, with a similar approach of combining multiple practices. And I think in this way, all of us bringing our strengths together, we have a higher power of actually creating something more impactful versus just me trying to create like a fashion concept and all that, you know, science and engineering improvements and all those like basically discoveries stay in an archive of university where no one can access to. So how can we actually combine all of them and do something with it? Because especially right now, we are at the time that if you don't do something right now, there will no be time. There's no other time. Like done.
Yeah. So I was asking though, like, what have you been able to achieve in your research and your work?
My research had two phases. Like, I mean, two phases of my research has been a little like done right now. In the first phase with a collaboration with the University of British Columbia, basically a group of scientists and biologists and material engineers, we were able to create the first proof of concept of this living textile. And in the second phase, we started to think of this textile as an indication, as a visual cue for consumers. And we did a really in-depth research on temporal patterns and how these changing patterns can help basically triggering or forcing people to take different actions. And, you know, that part of it, like more of a psychological aspect of it. Yeah, so far, we managed to actually create like a first proof of concept. It can live, it can like, you know, do whatever I always say that it does, but it's not in a production scale. And to be honest with you, that's not my goal because I don't want to contribute to the whole problem.
You happen to have one of these in your closet now? Do you just bust it out once in a while and wear it?
I do have small samples, which by now they're dead, but as they did, they're actually more beautiful now too. But
what happens visually when they die?
Well, depends on the type of organisms that I use. The first series of organism of algae that I use, strain of algae that I use, they tend to lose color and fade away. So the growth pattern starts from no color. They start growing these beautiful patches of green, and it gets greener and darker, and to the point that it covers the whole sample. And as it dies, it fades. The color fades out. The second strain of algae that we use in Netherlands, the color tends to get a little more yellowish or goldish after death process. So there are different aspects to to think about it. And the whole point of it, I don't mean for these to be another solution. As I said, I want this to become a piece that people care with and slowly build those habits towards, a bigger, goal.
Okay. So another question I had is the samples that you created, at least in these first prototypes, basically, they look kind of like a rain poncho or something like that. You know, they spread out and they're very thin, of course. Is the thinness, is that a necessity, or would it be possible to create ones that were just heavier, or like a coat or something like that?
Yeah, no, actually, it doesn't need to be like a film or see-through fabric. Basically, the reason that I created the first proof of concept that way is to show people the process of what actually happens through the textile, sort of like an X-ray of textile.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the lab when we were working and testing different scenarios, we actually used like heavy material like cotton, linen, banana, silk, the various different type of substrates. Yeah, no, to answer to that, like directly, no, it doesn't really need to be see-through at all. That was just the purpose of that
Okay.
exhibition.
That was just so that the person seeing, they couldn't miss what you were trying to display for them.
Exactly. As I said, it's more of a provocative piece for me, and I want people to realize that, okay, what do you mean? And it's more of a conversation versus dictating what to do and what not to do. And a lot of people come to me and say that, hey, like, you're not good with plants, so does it mean that you're going to kill this? I'm like, perfect, kill it. And then that guilt is going to take you somewhere, hopefully. Um,
That's true, because you couldn't wear it twice and keep it locked away all the time like that. That's the point, right?
yeah, exactly. That's what I always say, that you're not, well, when you come home and just like take your clothes off after a very warm day and throw them through wash machine or a corner of your closet, you're not going to treat them the same way. Or maybe next time that you're going to go to the park and sit on a very rough texture bench, you're going to think about it, how it's going to affect your second skin. Because think about it, like textiles are literally second skin and the most intimate object around us, because they're always with us, on us, the closest thing out there.
Yeah, that's true. I really never thought of it that way, how that intimacy that you have with clothing that way. I got to say, though, since COVID has happened and I've stayed locked in like 4 or 5 days in a row without seeing people, I do end up wearing the same shirt over and over again, because like a cartoon character, nobody ever sees me,
Yeah, actually, I'm happy about it. Like, I mean, one of the positive aspects of COVID was that people stopped shopping for a while. They didn't need new clothes. So
In
that's
fact,
not bad.
so I was listening to this report. It was on the New York Times. They have a podcast every day called The Daily, and they did a whole thing about a week or two ago, and it was about how the fashion industry has been just eating itself right now. Just there was one fashion designer who started like sweatpants forever or something, and blowing up because all people want to wear is the most comfortable clothing that they can wear.
I mean, if you look at this, like, pictures that are going around in social media about Zoom and how people are just like, very dressed up from, mid top and then bottom if they're wearing their PJ. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to freely admit that half the meetings I take, now I'm wearing pants right now. I'm wearing my boxer shorts in most of my meetings, I got to say.
I'm the same. Like, don't worry. I mean, I wish it was always the same, that people would realize how it impacts everything. If they would just like take a second minute and think about, do I really need another piece of clothing or not? Like, and another aspect of this is that, just because you need to actually constantly care for them and take care of them, so they need effort and attention. I hope for people to start realizing that, oh, it's like having 10 kids versus one. I cannot take care of all of them, so I might have to buy less to be able to, keep them alive longer.
Sure. Well, say you're preaching to the choir from me. I don't purchase a lot of clothes, but I saw, I don't know if you heard this story a few years ago, when I think it was some of the UN, some of the people from high up in the UN were traveling to the tropical regions. I think they were in like Sri Lanka or someplace like that. And the head of the United Nations, General Secretary at the time, I think it was Ban Ki-moon, he decided, he's like, hey, it's not reasonable for us to wear suits while we walk around here in the tropics. And he like set a new trend by like taking the jacket off and like what you would normally wear, because dressing that way necessitates a tremendous energy profile. You have to keep all this air conditioning on like crazy because people are idiotically wearing suits in the tropics,
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I'm glad that people are starting to take action and go against about all these very like social, what do you call it, taboos.
Mm-hmm.
because it's okay not to wear a suit when you're going into tropics. Like, and who says that if you don't wear a suit, you're not a crazy politician, professional person?
Yeah. We need to redefine this. It was created, it was man-made culture that decided this is the way it had to be. And it's got to be someone's initiative to say, we're not going to be that way anymore because it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. I always say we need to retrain ourselves.
Exactly.
We've been trained this way. We've grown up seeing all these beautiful pictures. Like, success has always been shown to us in pictures and advertisements and everything as a girl who wears suit and a guy who suits up too. So, and they're always like the same. The hair is always just the same. It's always the same. And I just feel like people don't even think about other ways of looking successful than those images out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it makes me laugh when I look at some LinkedIn profiles.
I would find
so
that
fake.
I always find that these folks, they think that they have to look a certain way to project this particular image. But then if you look at the people who've really achieved the biggest success in life in any particular field, very often they'll decide, hey, you know what? I've already achieved success. I'm gonna look the way I want to look and be myself. And
Actually, that is so true. Yes. I mean, that's the whole problem with the society. People constantly, just because they're not there yet, the only thing that they can do is to just try to look that way.
right.
That's why they go with the appearance, and
Yeah.
most of them, not to be mean, but most of them are empty inside, and that's what's happening right now. I mean, most of these pictures that I look at, they're just students, first year students, and they look like Bill Gates in like a conference. I'm like, why are you not yourself? Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, my twist on that whole idea was that, hey, if the people who really made it are full of this confidence and they act like themselves, if I display myself like completely, then people will say, hey, that guy's got confidence right there. He must have achieved something, you know?
Totally, because as you said, people that they actually got somewhere, they don't care about how they look because everybody already knows them. If you can hold a good conversation with them for a while, and you know that, then the appearance doesn't matter anymore. That's all about it. So
I have to say, I've lived in some countries, and I'm not going to say which ones, where as a cultural aspect, it was more important to look the part than to actually to know anything or be able to perform at it. And it really was, even if I knew that this person was a good person and he was somewhat knowledgeable, it was more important to him to dress the part and look the part than to display what his actual knowledge was about the topic he was speaking of.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just what is sort of expected from people right now. Think about the whole, like, if you go to a shop, it doesn't matter how fancy or not fancy at all. They first look how you're dressed, what you're wearing, how much you're worth immediately, and then they decide how to treat you. Like, there are times that I just like go to places with my gym clothes, and then I don't get served.
What?
I'm not kidding. I don't get served. And then I wear, like, I don't know, something a little nicer that they can't guess immediately how much it costs. And, it changes. The same person, same location. Yeah.
I honestly, I viscerally hate that way of thinking and treating people. Honestly, I think it's just awful. Like, from head to toe. Other questions I might have had. For my audience, would you like to say what we know of the impact of the climate impact of the fashion industry? Like, how bad?
Oh yeah, it is going with the speed of, I mean, if not faster, with the speed of light right now. It was basically estimated that by year 2025, the carbon footprint of textile industry was going to be a quarter of the whole, pollution industry, considering like airplanes and this and that. And it's insane to think about it. Every single minute, just like a single minute that you're chatting here, don't even realize it. There are going to be like million tons of textiles being dumped into the landfill. Now we have insane amount of human-made, like man-made islands that are made for our textiles because they can't do anything about it. No matter how much you donate, like there are a lot of other facts that it really shook my bone when I first came across them. That basically what happens is that people donate, and by donating you think that I'm doing something good. I'm not just like throwing them away. And how much do you think these donations can take in? Like, I mean, these are small nonprofit little shops here and there, and they cannot go with the same speed of this amount of clothing that come in. So what happens is that they just like pick and choose, and the ones that may not be as good looking, they're just going to be thrown into the landfill again. So I just feel like this has become another problem in this whole society. That's what's happening with everything else, same as textile, that if it's not my problem, it's somebody else's. So by just putting the weight on somebody else's shoulders, we think that, problem solved. Now I donated it and it's not my problem anymore. But do you really care what's really happening to the piece of clothing that you donated? Like, do you keep track? No.
No, it's pretty hard to keep track anyway. It's like, what options do you have to follow that? I remember the worst piles of clothing. I mean, I've seen in some developing countries some pretty extreme examples, but I was in Tacoma, Washington once when I lived out there, and I just went to go to the Goodwill to actually buy some clothing, and it was such a massive warehouse with huge bins everywhere. And I was like, you couldn't even look through all of this stuff if you wanted to. Like, I can't imagine. And then I saw, that was when that video Thrift Store by Macklemore came out. And it was in that same facility. I'm watching that video. I'm like, I've been there. I've been to that place. There's so much clothing everywhere. And I was like, wow. I mean, what do you do with all this stuff? It can't possibly get processed through the system.
No. And the truth is that they won't get processed in the system. And they have to renew, because no matter what their business too, so they have to change and renew their pieces constantly as well. They're doing a good thing, but with the demand and with the amount of waste that we are producing right now, nobody can really keep up. That's why I say we need to change the material culture versus just thinking and focusing about the after artifact.
Right.
We need to focus on the production and duration of use versus just bringing solutions to the after the harm is caused.
It really comes down to making a business model that works with that, because our whole economy is based on consumption right now, right? And so, like, how do you, if you're right now they're making millions of dollars, well, they're not this year they're not.
No, and it's funny because I heard yesterday, I was reading, somebody actually referred this article that I haven't finished reading, but it's saying that the whole pandemic forced the fashion industry to rethink so many of their business models, because now they know that the same thing is not going to be accepted, it's not going to work anymore. And I hope that they pick on a lot of different things. But at the same time, when it comes to business, especially corporation, it's not gonna, we can't really rely on them to make a change, because they're basically, they're causing the demand, but we are responding to that as consumers, as citizens, right? So if you're more of a conscious citizens and consumer, then they have to respond to that. So think of it right now. Now that people are not shopping, well, they have to do something else. They have to produce less, or they have to think about other type of, I don't know, doing their business. So that's what I'm saying. So we actually have more power to create the demand and force them to move in a different direction than just waiting for them to make a change.
That's the only way it's going to happen. We have a unique opportunity, because in every way of life, and every person living in 2020 right now has had to creatively been forced to make some kind of modification to the way that they were living their life before. And making one change can lead to other changes, right?
Yeah, I think this year was a really good reminder for everyone to, especially that people had a little more time to rethink a lot of things and be a little more conscious to their environments and nature and about what's happening in the climate change right now. That we're at the time that it's not just in the books or news anymore. You can actually feel it from year to year, from season to season. So
The whole West is on fire right now. Are you on the West Coast?
I'm on the West Coast, but the fire, I'm in BC, so the fires have come up to just Washington, D.C., across the border. Like, I think, like, unfortunately for them, but fortunately, it hasn't come to Canada yet. But last year and the year before that, we had insane amounts of fires.
Yeah.
And I was reading these reports saying that from last year summer to this year, West Coast had, like, California only talking about, had 4,000 something wildfires, and now this year they're up to almost 8,000. So it's
Well,
almost a double. It's only 1 year, and I'm speechless. Like, I can't really say anything about it. It's just too
I'm
sad, and yeah.
climate change over here too, because I'm out in the Caribbean, right? I'm
Oh my gosh, nice.
Virgin Islands, and there are literally 6 big storms brewing out in the middle of the Atlantic right now,
Oh
and
my.
they've already gotten to, like, was it LMS, something like that? Like, we're so far into the letters, and we've had all these named storms that we aren't even we're about halfway through, something like that. So it's really insane on that. Now, another model, and we are talking about the business model of clothing and extending their life and reducing waste. Now, you studied before in Holland, right? And there is a company. Have you heard of this company? They will rent you clothing, basically your jeans, because the fashion of jeans is always changing. So every month, then you turn in your old jeans, and they recycle the denim and turn them into something that's more upgraded the fashion. So every season or something, you're not owning these jeans, you're renting them, and then they change them.
Um, I was there for a year. I was doing more of a design residency at a lab. I didn't get to, like, spend a lot of time there, but I never heard of this. It sounds like a great idea, but at the same time, when it comes to something like denim, the production of denim is one of the most pollutant type of, like, garments right now in the whole industry. And just, like, recycling it itself, like, I personally have a lot when it comes to these things. I always say, okay, so you're trying to just, like, solve this, but do you actually know what other problems you're causing? Same as I heard that there are these sprays right now saying that, hey, we don't have to use all that amount of water and this and that to dye our denims anymore. So they're just, like, producing these sprays that anybody can just, like, spray their own denim in whatever, like, look that they wish and so on. It sounds like a genius idea at the beginning because it's sort of like cutting off a lot of that production and waste and pollution, but and labor to, not
Yeah.
emission. But at the same time, the production of that spray, that factory and that manufacturing is crazy pollutant as well. The amount of, I mean, we really need to put everything in perspective, in a whole bigger picture and context, that it's not just, oh, now we have a different direction and this is going to solve that issue, but is it really helpful? Or how is it helpful? We just need to ask these questions every time that we are trying to rethink the way how we are proceeding in this world, versus just, again, that would be another band-aid solution. For example, saying that recycling, that would be great, but then let's say it's a purse, what's going to happen to that purse afterwards? Like, there's going to be an end cycle, and where is that, and what then? Who takes responsibility over that?
How many times does something that looks like progress end up having some unforeseen effect that's as bad or worse than the thing you were trying to do in the first place, right?
Exactly. And again, just like, taking the weight off our shoulder and putting it on somebody else doesn't mean that, that's the viable solution.
Right. Right, exactly. A lot of times it does end up worse. It just ends up worse for somebody else rather than worse for you, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So that's something. I mean, like in the 80s, for example, there was a ton of smog in Los Angeles, right, and Riverside County, and then they passed, different air pollution standards, and everybody went in California, yay, great, right? But the fact is, all the factories, they just left like Southern California, went down to Mexico or something, someplace where there was no restriction on the air pollution, and the overall effect on the planet was probably worse. But the air sure was cleaner in Los Angeles, like.
Yeah, see that? Like it really, yeah, it comes down to all these business models, and because the whole business models of this era is based on profit and what gives them the most profit in a shorter amount of time,
Mhm.
versus actually saying, okay, profit is important. Of course, nobody wants to go bankrupt or anything like that, but at the same time, it should be in a balance to
Yeah,
consider a lot, because if there is no future, there's no profit for you neither. So
right.
how about that?
No, that's a good point. Well, thank you for joining me and talking about this. I really enjoyed talking to you, and
Oh,
you know,
same here. Thank you for having me.
sure. I mean, I love people who encourage us to think in different ways. It's really healthy, critical thinking skills.
I'm really glad. You know what, all my life I try to be that, and that would make me the happiest if I know I can at least like influence one single mind, and that's all it takes.
No, I think you're doing a pretty good job. So I'll send you a link when this is ready to go, and
Perfect. That
you,
sounds great.
you can reach out to people, and I hope that um, I just wish you continued success. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.